Hello everyone, Morgie Roy here again. Today I just want to talk about how I started dungeon mastering, game mastering, however you want to refer it to as. I was in a D&D game for a short period of time, and I really enjoyed it. But unfortunately, things happened, and my dungeon master had to go on hiatus. So I still wanted to play D&D and other TTRPGs. And if you've played any of TTRPGs for a while, you know that there is an overabundance of players and an underabundance of dungeon masters / game masters to run those games. I decided to start running my own game. Like most new players, I decided to start with a homebrew setting. Now, my first lesson would be, don't necessarily start with a homebrew setting. Don't make everything from the ground up. You don't need it to be completely original. It's fine, especially if you're doing it for the first time. You might just want to start out and figure out if you even like running a game, because it's not for everybody. So my best suggestion would be to start with a module or a pre-written adventure that you can start with. You can always adjust it and make it more your own as you go, but it takes a lot of pressure off of you at first, so you don't feel like you're making an entire world from scratch. Because that's a lot. It's a lot to take on when dungeon mastering, game mastering is already a lot of work as it is. I did not know that at the time. I decided to make my own homebrew world. This was during COVID, so I wasn't able to really leave my house. Probably a little bit depressed and very anxious about what was going on in the world. So I had a dream that I was on a Greek island, a statue in the distance. And for some reason in my brain, the word Akaros popped in. It's a very short dream. That was all that happened in the dream. But I was like, oh, that's pretty cool. Maybe I can build something with that. And that was the start of my world, my little section of the world that I started with anyway. So I came up with this group of islands that was in the shape of a circle, was the Broken Crown, because they were all these little islands that were vaguely in the shape of a crown with spaces in between. And I thought that was kind of an unnatural geological situation. So I decided that there was a reason why there were no islands in the center of this circle. And I said that there was this myth about this catastrophe that happened, give or take 1,000 years ago, always 1,000 years ago in these things, that a meteor had fallen and destroyed the islands in the center. Now, I had never heard of the word Akaros. I don't know where my brain came up with that word, where it popped into my head. I knew it was Greek sounding, but I didn't know anything about it. So I looked it up. And apparently, in demonology, Akaros is a demon who is in the service of a greater demon called Amaimon. And I was like, okay, we have our big bad. We have a secondary big bad, and we have a big bad in the form of Amaimon. So using that information, I decided to take the name Akaros and name the main island in this archipelago after that. And it would also be named after this demon general of this big demon called Amaimon. And then I looked up other servants of this demon called Amaimon and found some other cool sounding Greek-like names that I could use for the other islands. And I came up with 6 because I didn't want any more. 6 in hindsight, now that we're getting towards the end of this campaign, 6 is still too many. Should have gone with 4. 4 is the sweet number. Final Fantasy, there's always 4 big boss guys, and then you fight the really big boss. So 4 would have been better, but 6 is what I came up with. And a bunch of little islands that I named Island of whatever. Like, I kept those ones fairly straightforward, and they just were descriptors of what they were. So there's an island of ruin, an island of rot, an island of giants, an island of dragons, and I had the big islands named after these demons. So I had a setting, I had a big bad, some smaller big bads for the map that I used for this setting, I basically just took a bunch of islands in the Mediterranean, vaguely traced them and switched them all around until they kind of, when you put them together, made a vague circle. So, yeah, I can reveal all this stuff now because my players know that there's demons involved, so I don't have to keep this all secret anymore. But this is how I came up with it. And it was really fun. The world building was really fun. I spent way too long world building. Most of these islands, my players have never been to. I think they've been to 3 or 4 of the little islands and all 6 of the big islands now because they're going island to island to feed the secondary big bads. But I did way more work than ever came up. And that's fine. You do that as a DM. But it's something to consider when you're starting out. Maybe you don't need to do all that work. Maybe you can steal some ideas, some maps, some locations, and you don't have to come up with everything whole cloth. You live and you learn, and I did have fun world building my world. You know, a lot of Final Fantasies, you can tell Final Fantasy is a big influence on my world building. But in a lot of Final Fantasies, the religion is bad. The organized religion is bad. So of course, the organized religion in my world, not good. After this meteor struck the middle of the islands and destroyed a bunch of islands and caused widespread natural disasters, tidal waves, hurricanes, horrible destruction that almost took the entire civilization of the islands back to square one, 6 heroes came out of the woodwork and were the ones that helped everything. And so a religion of hero worship was created around these 6 heroes that saved everybody. So the old gods, by this new religion, the old gods were spoken of as didn't help anybody in the situations. And these 6 heroes did all the work by saving as many people as they could, rebuilding the civilization, and eventually dying as heroes do. So that's the story of my setting. These old gods aren't followed anymore, and where their temples were, they were rebuilt in the image of these 6 heroes, and their statues were built in their honor. One statue and each island was named after one of the 6 heroes. So, who were actually demons, pretending to be heroes. And it's all a big plan to make the big bad evil demon a god in his own right. With enough worship and enough sacrifice, he would become, instead of just a demon, he would become a new god. So, and that's what my players are trying to stop. So that's my world in very, very simple terms. But I did so much extra stuff on the side. I did like major imports and exports for each of the islands. I did populations for each of the islands. I did fashion trends for each of the islands. I did popular food and drink for each of the island. And this was all great for, like, you know, making the world seem alive and connected and all that stuff. But your players may or may not interact with that, and you're spending a lot of time on stuff that may or may not come up. So I'm not saying that everything I did was wasted, and I'm not saying I didn't enjoy it, but I'm saying if it wasn't COVID and I didn't have way too much free time where I could do all this stuff, I probably would have been okay not going into so much detail. So when I later ran another short campaign, like a mini campaign, I think it was 10 sessions long, we played Lost Mine of Phandelver. And I did add a bunch of more stuff to that. I changed a lot of stuff, made a lot of the characters more interconnected, added a little bit more history, and, you know, made everything a little bit more connected to the characters. But it was still so much less work than my homebrew world. And as much as I love my homebrew world, once I'm done with it, I don't really have the urge to go back to it. Once this campaign is done, I think I'm going to start on something completely new. And all of that work that I did won't be wasted, but might not be touched ever again. So it's a fine line. It's a fine line between making your world interesting and exciting and interconnected and spending your time on stuff that's more important when it comes to the daily session to session play of D&D. So, I'm not saying anything I did was bad, and if you do the same thing, you are fine. A lot of DMs start with a homebrew setting, a homebrew world, and go crazy. A lot of new DMs and GMs go a little bit crazy their first time. Just test the waters first, because sometimes GMs make a whole new setting from whole cloth, and then something happens and their campaign doesn't work out, or their campaign falls apart, and they might feel like all this work has been wasted. So my suggestion would be, it's okay if you do it my way, where you just do everything and go a little crazy with it, or just, give yourself a little bit of a break. Start with an adventure module. Start with a setting, even. Like Eberron, Faerun, Strixhaven, Greyhawk, Dragonlance. Just starting with a setting helps a little bit with the work that you need to put into it. Even a setting that's from media. Like if you want to set a D&D campaign in Middle-earth, if you want to set a D&D campaign in the Seven Kingdoms, that gives you something to work with. It gives you maps. It gives you town names. You don't have to look up a town name generator a million times like I did and try to find something that sounds like it would be from the Mediterranean islands. Yeah. So it gives you something to start with, and then you can make everything else whole cloth if you want. But I loved making my setting. I wouldn't do anything differently in hindsight, but I think I was a little bit more ambitious than what actually was practical. It's just a learning experience, and sometimes you need to go through that too. So, anyway, this has just been a story about how I started game mastering, how I created my world, or the very basics of how I created my world. I'm not going into the details of like how the nitty gritty of how the government is run. But yeah, feel free to do what I did, but if I don't want starting out game mastering to be such an ambitious and possibly intimidating ordeal, start small. Start small, see if you like it. But anyway, thanks for watching. Please like and subscribe. We'll be back again next week. And I hope you enjoyed the video. I hope you're having a good day. If you're not having a good day, I hope your bad day is over with soon. And we'll talk to you next time. Bye-bye!